Sweat trickled from my temples, soaking into the collar of my already damp jacket from the morning mist. My feet moved cautiously along the barely visible narrow path, only worn shoe prints and broken twigs offering any guidance. 2 hours had passed since I'd left my car by the paved roadside. In Vermont, June meant warm air interspersed with unpredictable drizzles, and these Appalachian foothills swallowed every sound. Thorny bushes clawed at my jeans, leaving red scratches on my skin with every attempt to free myself. I stepped on a slippery pine root, nearly falling before my right hand grabbed a birch trunk. The tree's rough bark broke my fall. Gasping for breath, I examined my palm, blistered, decorated with wood splinters and dried mud. This was no official hiking trail anymore. This was a wild path made by desperate people like me. Around me, the dense forest closed in. Waist-high ferns grew wild between moss-covered boulders. In the distance, a woodpecker shattered the silence with its rhythmic knocking. I kept walking, following the mental map from that online forum. 200 meters past the dry creek, turned left at the split oak, but the creek was now just a muddy puddle, and the oak lay toppled, consumed by fungus. Then, beyond a wall of maple leaves, the structure emerged. The decaying wooden cabin stood tilted, like a drunk clinging to his last cane. Its roof had collapsed at the center, dragging support beams into the dark interior. The walls, once sturdy, were now covered in lichen-green crust and cottony white mold. A musty stench stabbed my nose. Wet earth, rotting wood, and something sweetly rancid, maybe a rat carcass behind the walls. I approached the front door hanging on rusted hinges. The cedar plank had split vertically, revealing darkness within. When I stepped inside, the floor shrieked. Dim light through roof gaps illuminated swirling dust particles. The main room was littered with debris, glass shards, a splintered wooden chair, scattered roof tiles. At the hallway's end, one door remained, its handle rusted but intact. I grabbed the handle, cold, tightened my grip, pushing slowly. Creak! The door gave an inch, then stopped, as if blocked by some weight behind it. I shoved harder, my shoulder pressing against the damp wood. A rancid stench, rotting meat mixed with ammonia, gushed through the gap. From the darkness beyond came faint rustling, scritch scritch, like fabric being dragged across dusty floorboards. I let go of the handle. My heart pounded wildly. Maybe just the wind, I thought, or an animal nesting inside. But my gut said otherwise. This was a place of death. Nothing living should enter. The sun began to set, painting the sky in oranges and purples. Tree shadows stretched like black fingers reaching for the cabin. I stepped away quickly. A creeping cold crawled up my skin. No sounds now. The woodpecker had gone, replaced by a biting silence. I searched for flat ground among the pines to pitch my tent. The terrain here was muddy and rocky. Finally, I found a small clearing between two granite boulders. Far enough from the cabin, I muttered while lowering my backpack. But when I turned around, my gaze locked onto the intact second-floor window of the structure. Behind that broken glass, something moved. Just a flash, a dark shadow passing quickly. I blinked. Now only empty darkness remained. Must have been an owl. I reassured myself while unpacking the tent. Yet my fingers trembled as I assembled the aluminum poles. Night fell fast in the Vermont woods. The humid air turned cold, breathing thin mist that slithered between trees. I knocked 2 dry pine sticks together over the campfire embers. Orange sparks burst, then steady flames emerged, warming my stiffening face and hands. Around me, the forest darkness felt alive. Crickets chirping, bats rustling overhead, occasional insect clicks in the foliage. I opened a can of peas and meat, heating it by the fire with my folding fork. The sound of metal scraping tin pierced the quiet. Click, clack, click. I froze, breath held. From the cabin's direction, 60 meters behind the tree line, came the echo. Crack! Short but sharp, the sound sent birds scattering in panic overhead. Maybe part of the cabin collapsing. I reasoned, trying to stay calm, but my body reacted on its own, hairs standing on end, heart pounding wildly. I watched the fire, its flames lean toward the cabin, as if blown by wind from that direction. Yet the air was perfectly still. For 30 minutes I sat motionless. I forced myself to finish eating, but the metallic taste of fear coated my tongue. Only the fire's crackle remained. Should I check? Instinct said no, but curiosity and dread of what might be lurking there made me rise. I readied my LED flashlight. Its blinding white beam could reach 200 meters. Tossed 3 large pine branches into the fire to keep it alive. Then took the first step into the darkness. My legs staggered across the uneven ground. Roots jutted up like black serpents in the flashlight's glare. The pale yellow beam pierced the thin mist, catching swirling dust and tiny insects. The stench of damp earth and mold grew pungent as I neared the cabin. The structure materialized slowly, a silhouette darker than the night itself. My light swept across the wooden facade. That's impossible. The door I'd left wide open now stood firmly shut. I approached with heavy steps. The door's wood, previously split vertically, was now covered in fresh gashes, not animal scratches. These were deep, parallel, perfectly aligned like knife or axe marks. The longest gash measured about 30 centimeters, cutting through the wood grain to reveal pale inner layers. Some grooves formed random crosshatch patterns. Hiss! A short hiss came from behind the door. I stumbled backward, flashlight shaking. Something was inside. I stepped forward again, trembling hand touching the rusted iron handle. Cold. I gripped it and pulled slowly. Creak, creak. The door moved 2 centimeters, then stopped, as if locked or being held. I pulled harder, arm and shoulder muscles straining. The handle groaned, but the door wouldn't budge. Through the narrow gap, a rancid stench stabbed my nose, ammonia and rotting meat, stronger than this afternoon. Thud! A violent impact from behind the door, like wood being smashed inward. I recoiled from the handle. Rustling sounds followed. Scree, 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 as if dragging a wooden chair across dusty floorboards. Hello? My voice cracked, barely audible. No response, just a sudden night wind rattling dry maple leaves on the roof. Nausea rose, legs trembled. I spun around and ran, the flashlight beam jerking wildly across pine trunks, roots, and brambles. Breath came in ragged bursts, lungs scorched by cold air. I braced my hands on my knees at the campsite, gasping for calm. But my eyes caught the wrongness. The campfire wasn't just dead, it had been smothered. Thick white smoke coiled from perfectly intact logs. At its center, red embers glowed, proof of recent extinguishing. I grabbed a fire poker. The embers scorched my fingers. Someone killed this fire 2 minutes ago. My flashlight beam carved through the dark. The tent still stood, but one guy line hung loose. My food tin, left neatly on a rock, now lay overturned in dirt. My backpack, zipped shut when I'd left, gaped open, contents spilled like guts. Hello? I shouted, voice fracturing between anger and fear. Who's there? Silence. The forest answered with leaf whispers. I swept the flashlight through tree clusters. Its white beam sliced darkness, catching only static shadows. Nothing moved, yet the sensation prickled my neck. I was being watched. I grabbed the folding knife from my pocket, flicked it open. Snick! The metallic snap startled even me. From somewhere beyond the trees, something fell. Crunch, rustle, like a branch being stepped on. The knife trembled in my grip. The flashlight beam jerked wildly toward the sound. Thick elderberry bushes 10 meters to the left. Leaves swayed gently. Wind? But the night air stood dead still. I held my breath, ears catching every crackle. Show yourself, I rasped. Silence. Then, that sound, guttural, wheezing, like someone struggling to breathe. Not laughter, closer to choking. Now coming from behind the tent, my pulse hammered loud enough to drown thought. Move, now. I grabbed my backpack, dumping scattered contents, sleeping bag, portable stove, water bottle. No time to retrieve them. Ripped the tent ropes from their stakes, nylon fabric tearing at the corner. My shaking hands fumbled with aluminum poles. Clack! One slipped loose, plunging into mud. Closer now, from behind the granite boulder where I'd pitched camp. I swung the flashlight. The stone split the beam, one side blazing white, the other drowned in black. Along its shadow line, a trail, deep boot prints stamped in damp soil. Not mine. Adrenaline burned. I abandoned the tent. The backpack hung half-packed, straps dangling. First step toward the escape route, but the path was a void. My 10-watt flashlight couldn't pierce the pine canopy's chokehold. Crack! A branch snapped to my right. I whirled. The beam caught a cedar trunk. Its lower branches swayed, as if something had just passed through. Stop! I screamed, voice shattering. Now unmistakable, ragged breath with vocal tremors, like someone stifling laughter, accompanied by the sound of coarse fabric scraping. Where is he? I ran. The flashlight beam bucked wildly, skittering across gnarled roots. My right foot caught. I crashed down. Icy mud seeped through my pants. Gritting through ankle pain, I scrambled up. Behind me, foliage tore. Like a body forcing through brambles. No footsteps, just thrashing and hisses. The return path vanished. I scanned trees. 3 forked oaks should be left, but only identical birches glared back. Panic set in. I sprinted blindly. The flashlight dimmed, battery dying. The laughter now shrieked, loud, falsetto, dripping with mock delight. From above, I jerked my head up. Maple branches 5 meters ahead thrashed violently. A hunched shadow, human-shaped, leapt to the next tree. Crack! A broken branch speared the ground near my feet. Help! My scream split the night. Only my own echo answered. I ran harder, lungs scorched, tongue cotton dry. Then suddenly pavement. The highway! My car sat 20 meters ahead, parked roadside. Keys clattered wildly in my pocket. The laughter now roared. From the bushes directly behind my car. No time. Doors locked. Ignition on. Headlights flared, illuminating thorny shrubs. Behind the leaves, 2 white dots glinted, eyes visible for less than a second before vanishing. The car lurched forward. I accelerated to 90 km/h on the winding road. The rearview mirror showed only darkness. Yet the sensation clung, something still watched from behind. At the 3-kilometer mark, nausea surged violently. I swerved the car over, stumbled out on buckling knees, vomiting peas and primal fear. As I raised my head, my dying flashlight's final beam crossed the roadside brush. There, snagged on a low branch, a shred of blue nylon fabric from my tent. My legs had turned to lead. 6 hours climbing steep trails along Glacier National Park's edge, with a 15-kilo backpack crushing my shoulders, left me gasping. The dry November wind scraped my face, leaving a bitter tang on my lips. In the distance, snow-capped peaks blushed red under the setting sun. Just 500 meters more. I calculated from the topographic map in my hand. This final incline was the cruelest, loose scree and pine roots rising like desiccated snakes. The summit spread flat and open, a yellowed grassland the size of half a soccer field, dotted with stone fire rings. At the western edge, a rock outcrop jutted into empty air. No people, no sounds but wind whispering through skinny ponderosa pine branches. I chose the stone circle nearest the cliff and dropped my pack with a relieved groan. Shoulder muscles throbbed. Click, click, click. I assembled the tent poles with trembling hands. Cold seeped through my flannel jacket. Dinner was simple. Boiled dry pasta with canned sardines. I ate straight from the pot while watching the valley below. Mountain shadows crept forward, swallowing the forest whole. I walked to the cliff's edge and sat on a flat rock, jutting over what must have been a 100-meter drop. My legs dangled freely. Below, a small river snaked like a silver ribbon. Wind rose from the valley, carrying the scent of decaying pine needles and frozen earth. Snap! A branch breaking, I turned left, toward waist-high spruce bushes 20 meters from my seat. A man stood there, faded gray hoodie, jeans torn at the knees, no backpack, no water bottle. His arms hung limp at his sides. We locked eyes. His face drowned in hoodie shadows, but I caught the gleam of his pupils, black, unblinking. Another hiker? I thought, but where'd he come from? Just as I raised my hand to wave, he pivoted. His steps were hurried, almost frantic, disappearing soundlessly into the trees. I stood, staring at the void he'd left. The details registered. His sneakers were mud-caked, not hiking boots. That hoodie was too thin for sub-zero temps. He'd entered the woods eastward, but the only trail approached from the south. I scanned the campsite, just my tent, one fire ring, and empty grassland. No other gear, no footprints in the frozen soil except mine. Did he scale the cliff face? I edged toward the drop-off, peering down. Only boulders and deadfall. Impossible. I lit the campfire with a gas lighter. Orange flames danced, washing over my face, but the unease lingered. Why had he stared so long? Why no gear? In the distance, a wolf howled. Its cry slithered through the darkened valley. I cinched my jacket tighter. The campfire had shrunk to a mound of crimson embers. Cold needled my bones despite sitting close to the stone ring. 23:15. Read my dirt-crusted Casio watch. I rubbed my hands together. Breath-puffing white clouds. The surrounding forest was pitch black. Only the fire's 3-meter halo pierced the darkness. Beyond, the night hung like black velvet. Snap! My head jerked up. The sound came from the north, about 30 meters past the pine tree wall. A footstep on dry branches. Snap, snap, snap. Steady rhythm, measured, like someone circling the campsite slowly. Hello? My voice cracked. The steps halted. 10 seconds, then snap, snap, snap. Faster, closer. Who's there? Ma. No reply. Just wind roaring in the treetops. Danger. My instincts screamed. I gripped the lighter in my pocket, my only quick-reach weapon. Bear? But bears don't pause when shouted at. Lost hiker? Then why no response? I shoved 2 pine logs into the embers. Flames licked up, casting orange flickers into the brush. Nothing moved. I endured for 2 hours. Sat rigid on the foldable chair, gaze locked on the forest's dark wall. Every sound, leaf whispers, snapping twigs, sent my heart racing. 1 a.m. My head weighed heavy, but adrenaline kept me wired. I had to move. I stood, sweeping my Petzl headlamp toward the cliff. Thick clouds choked the sky, the full moon only occasionally revealing itself. I remembered the valley's moonlit view. Perhaps it might calm my frayed nerves. 10 steps to the cliff's edge. Icy wind greeted me. whipping through my hair. Below, the valley lay veiled in thin mist, bathed in pallid moonlight. The small river coiled like a silver serpent. Crack! The sound exploded behind me, a thick branch snapping. I whirled, headlamp slicing across spruce shrubs. He was there. The gray-hooded man stepped from the shadows, his hood drawn tight, face hidden except for a scruffy bearded chin. No backpack, no flashlight, arms limp at his sides, but fingers clenched. You know, his voice grated like rusted metal. I stepped back. My heel met the cliff's edge stone. They always fall, he continued, his smile stretched, too wide, unnatural, yellow teeth exposed. Who are you? My voice came louder than intended. He ignored me. West wind carries whispers.
Ma.
4 meters now. Back off, I warned. I'm armed.
Ma.
A bark of laughter. The rocks below are thirsty.
Ma.
3 meters? I glanced left, escape route blocked by thorns. Right, the abyss. My headlamp caught his eyes. Those pupils, black, dilated, unblinking. Psychotic? I realized. He lunged. Instinct outpaced thought. As his body lunged, clawed hands grabbing at my shoulder, I pivoted left, skirting the cliff's edge. His push met empty air. He staggered, nearly toppling. You fucking psycho! I roared, voice shredded by fear. His face transformed, the fake smile vanished. Lips peeled back in a snarl, eyes rolling white like a possessed man. A stench hit me, sour sweat and wet earth as he charged again. My hands reflexively seized his hoodie collar. The flimsy fabric tore halfway. We grappled. He was lighter, maybe 55 kilo, but rage made him feral. My knee slammed into his gut. Thwump! Air burst from his lungs. He shrieked, yet scrambled up, spitting dirt. You need to fall! He rasped, voice raw with malice. I retreated, my right foot nearly finding empty air. Pebbles skittered into the void below. The mist churned like restless ghosts. His attack turned savage, a bull-like headbutt. I ducked, wham! My right fist smashed his temple. He reeled backward. Now. I slammed him to the ground, knee pinning his chest. His ribs felt fragile under the jacket. Pupils dilated, tongue lolling spasmodically. Who are you? I roared, shaking his frame. He laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Cliff Keeper. Then, with final strength, his boot shot between my legs. White-hot pain exploded. I collapsed, vision spinning. He crawled up, swaying as he stood. A small folding knife flashed in his hand. Snick, an 8mm blade snapping open. Where was he hiding that? He slashed. I dodged right, the knife barely grazing my jacket. My headlamp! I ripped it off, blasting 300 lumens directly into his eyes. The light seared his vision. He screeched, hands clawing at his face. No time to think. I hefted a head-sized rock from the ground. Stay back! My voice shattered. He shook his head, eyes still screwed shut, but stepped forward again. No choice. I hurled the stone, missed, but the flinch sent him stumbling backward, right to the cliff's edge. Then I ran. Backpack? Tent? All abandoned. Just the headlamp and jacket on my body. I threw myself down the ascent route, the same boulder-strewn trail I'd climbed that morning. Legs trembled, but adrenaline fueled me like a combustion engine. 2 hours of running. The night forest roared. Wolves howled in the distance. My headlamp flickered, then died, battery drained. I hid behind a massive fallen tree, shivering. Above, on the cliff's edge, no sounds, no traces. I waited until dawn. Only when sunlight crested the ridges did I realize. The torn hoodie collar still clenched in my fist. The van's tires churned through the mud, carving deep scars into the abandoned Washington Forest Road. A thin mist clung to the cedar tops, dripping condensation onto the windshield like slow tears. The vehicle lurched to a stop in the clearing's dirt circle, a perfect arena walled by black pines. No other cars, no fresh footprints, just a fire ring of stones half drowned in rainwater, its ashes long cold. The side door hissed open, releasing a wave of bone-damp air. A propane stove flickered to life on the van floor, its blue flame winking against the creeping twilight. The smell of instant noodles and steam unfurled, swallowed by wind carrying increasingly heavy raindrops. Water began drumming the metal roof, a staccato percussion shattering the silence. The door slammed shut. Only the rear window, no wider than a palm, remained cracked open. Inside, laptop glow reflected off the fogged glass, illuminating a face suspended in digital limbo. Fingers danced across keys, a futile distraction from the solitude that now pressed like stone. Kizz! A white beam slashed across the laptop screen, blinding for an instant. The light came from the rear window, razor-focused like a spotlight, cutting through rain and fog. My body locked, breath stalled. squinting against the dark beyond the glass, hunting for any shape, any movement. Nothing. The light didn't fade or retreat. It snuffed out, abrupt as a strangled breath. The forest plunged back into blackness, only swaying tree silhouettes visible in the now roaring downpour. Ears strained for every crackle, water dripping from leaves, branches scraping, wind hissing between cedars. Fingers returned to typing, but the laptop screen now felt like a trap, mirroring the empty window behind me, as if observing every twitch. The screen died, plunging the van into wet darkness. The rain had escalated to a deafening roar, no longer droplets but nails hammering the metal roof. Occasional lightning flashed behind the trees, briefly illuminating branch shadows like giant claws on the window curtains. I pulled the blanket over my nose, yet the cold crept up from the van's damp floor. My body locked at the sound. Creak! A branch snapping too close. Not nature's collapse, but something stepping, then frantic splashes. Plesh, 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 circling the van's chassis. My pulse roared louder than the rain. The downpour no longer masked it, wheezing breaths, labored and wet, just beyond the sliding door. Then, the whisper, a man's voice, frayed by thunder. Inside, saw the light. Pause. Wait, don't. Fragments. Not panic, but eerie calm, like discussing hell's weather with a ghost. I yanked the blanket over my eyes, curling into a ball. The darkness beyond the windows felt alive, pressing. The rear window's cover was snapped shut, but it didn't stop the certainty. Something stared back through the black plastic. Kriak! The sliding door's flexible panel groaned, bulging inward as if shouldered. Talk. First knock. A pause. Talk. Talk. Harder, closer to ear level. Talk. Talk. Talk! The rhythm turned frantic, cutting through the rain's drone. 5 minutes of this, only knocks and water's hiss in reply. My pulse thundered in my skull. Then, the roar. Sheriff's Department! Open up! The whisperer's same voice, now strained, forcibly authoritative, but trembling with either fear or deception. The silhouette shifted restlessly behind the rain-streaked windows, a hatless head, shoulders devoid of badges, empty hands clutching neither weapon nor flashlight. The voice roared again. Open up! Now! But the knocks escalated into deafening blows. Bam! Bam! The sliding door rattled like a coffin pried open. My body slid off the bed, knees hitting the van's trembling floor. Unseen legs kicked at the mud beneath the door, splatters of wet earth oozing through the metal seam. The key turned slowly in the ignition. Click. Dashboard lights flickered. Vroom! The engine roared to life. Thud! Ah! Something, a shoulder, a head, slammed against the van's left flank. Hey! A hoarse shout, no longer a cop's command but a hunter's snarl at escaping prey. 2 pairs of feet pounded through mud, closing in. A tall shadow loomed at the driver's side window, palm slapping glass. Open! OP! The accelerator floored, rear wheels spun wildly. Splut! Splut! Tires churned the mire as the van fishtailed right, then lurched forward. Headlights tore through the rain's curtain. For one frozen second, the dashboard glow illuminated the face at the window. Wide eyes, their whites glowing like a night creature's. A gaping black mouth with protruding teeth. Wet hair clung to temples like rotting moss. Not a face, but a mask of terror and savagery. Then gone, swallowed by mist and tire-spun mud. The van careened down the flooded path, trees tearing past like sodden curtains. No more shouts. Nothing but a heartbeat hammering ribs and those glowing eyes dancing behind every blink. Washington's rain kept drumming the roof, the forests weeping, unheard by all.